Can you tell the difference between these two requests in English? Send me the report, please. Or, could you send me the report when you have a moment? Thanks. Same message, completely different tone. In British English, the first request might sound a little bit too rude or direct, even if you don't mean it that way. If you've ever wondered whether your English sounds a little bit too blunt, or if people sometimes misinterpret your tone, then you're not alone. In today's video, I'm going to explain how you can use softeners in your language to sound a little bit more polite when you're speaking English. But before we get started, a quick introduction. I'm Jo, and I work with people who want to improve their confidence and their fluency speaking English as a second plus language. I create videos here on YouTube once or twice a week, and you can also book a private conversation class with me if you want to practice your English speaking skills. I'll put all the details in the description below if you're interested. So one thing students often say to me is, I'm worried about sounding rude in English. How can I sound more polite but natural at the same time? This is where softeners come in really useful. And today I'm going to explain how to use them. So why does simply asking somebody to send you the report, please, sound rude? In many cultures, being direct is seen as being clear, honest, even respectful. But in the UK, both in professional and social settings, we tend to use indirect, softened language to show that we're being considerate. Send me the report sounds a little bit too much like a command. It's short, it's clipped. It might be fine during an emergency, but it can often come across as being too abrupt. Now compare that to, could you send me the report when you have a moment, please? Suddenly we've added space, flexibility and empathy. You're still making a request, but it doesn't sound quite so bossy. It sounds more collaborative. And that small difference can have a big impact in the way that people respond to you. So what exactly are softeners? Softeners are words and phrases that we use in our language to sound less direct, more polite and diplomatic. They don't change your message, they just make it easier for the other person to hear. In British English, we use softeners to avoid sounding too forceful, to respect other people's times, emotions and opinions, and to keep things smooth and friendly even when we disagree or need to say no. Remember, we try and avoid conflict at all costs. So we're going to have a look at some of the most common softeners and why they work. Let's break this down into 5 everyday situations. We'll explore how softeners can change the tone without changing the meaning. Imagine you're in a restaurant and you need to get past somebody. They're in the way. Now, you might say, move your chair, please. But it would be much better to say, would you mind moving your chair, please? Or do you think you could shift over a little bit? Why do these alternatives sound better? Well, the first version sounds like a direct instruction, almost like a teacher talking to a child. Move your chair, please. Adding little phrases like, do you think you could? Or would you mind? Makes you sound more polite and less like you're giving an order. You're giving the other person a choice, even though you expect them to say yes. Also, words like a bit and a little add a much softer tone. We love these tiny modifiers in British English. You've probably noticed I use them all the time. Situation 2 is a work situation. You're talking about a colleague about the best way to do something. It might be tempting to say, you should do it like this. But that might not be received very well by British ears. Much better to say something like, one idea might be to try it this way, or have you considered doing it like this? So why does this work? Well, telling somebody they should do something can sound like you're telling them what to do, or even criticising their current way of doing things. Saying one idea might be, or have you considered, is a way of offering more of a suggestion, not imposing your opinion too much. It shows openness and encourages discussion. This is especially useful in meetings or when you're giving feedback to a colleague or a peer. In the next situation, we're looking at expressing opinions. Maybe you're looking at the menu of a restaurant and you think it's a bit expensive, you could just say, that's expensive. But that can sound a little bit judgmental. It's better to say something like, well, that might be a bit pricey for some people. Or I guess it depends on your budget. Saying that's expensive sounds like a firm judgment. But the softened version shows awareness that people have different perspectives. It might be a bit pricey, uses two softeners. Might to show uncertainty, and a bit to reduce the impact. I guess it depends shows humility. It's not the truth, it's a view. This way, you avoid sounding critical or absolute. Okay, situation 4 is a situation in which you disagree about something. Now, some people might say that's wrong, but it's much better to say something like, I'm not sure that's quite right, or I see it a bit differently. Disagreeing is tricky in any language, but especially in British English. Being too direct can be seen as being confrontational. I'm not sure is a classic British phrase. It introduces doubt, but without attacking. Slightly differently is another great softener. It says that you're not opposing the idea completely, just offering another way of thinking about it. Use this kind of language when perhaps you're in a meeting situation where you want to share your point of view, but maintain harmony. The next situation is a situation in which you have to say no. Now, you might think it's okay to say, no, I can't help you, but that could come across as rather rude. Instead, try one of these. I'm afraid I won't be able to help with that this week. Or, unfortunately, that's not something I'm able to take on right now. By adding I'm afraid or unfortunately, you're acknowledging the other person's needs while still setting a boundary. It shows you that you're empathetic but still clear. That balance is especially important in professional communication. So when should you use softeners? Use softeners when you want to make a polite request, gently offer suggestions or feedback, disagree respectfully, when you need to say no or deliver bad news, and to build rapport or trust. But don't overuse them. If you use too many softeners, you might sound unsure or overly cautious. The goal is to sound kind and confident, not weak and apologetic. Think of them as a kind of seasoning. A little bit goes a long way. As usual, I'm going to make a free PDF for you to download on my website so you can practice using these softeners. But remember, softeners aren't about avoiding the message. They're about how you deliver the message. Doing it in a way that shows awareness, respect, and confidence. That's all for today, but if you enjoyed today's lesson, then give me a thumbs up, or even better, subscribe to my channel for more videos. And I really look forward to seeing you next time. Take care. Bye.